Bună seara, doamnelor și domnilor! Vă spun bine ați venit la o ediție specială a emisiunii Design Perfect. Sunt Roxana Gabor-Iliescu și alături de Ramona Popescu, ca în fiecare luni seară, vă invităm într-o călătorie, și nu spun degeaba acest cuvânt, într-o călătorie într-o lume minunată. Într-o lume minunată pe care o femeie pe un sfert româncă a descoperit-o acum 30 și ceva de ani, de fapt o călătorie perfect naturală a corpului nostru către noi înșine. Și am marea plăcere să-i spun bine a venit chiar aici în platoul Canal 33, fondatoarei The Journey. Dacă vă amintiți, am vorbit la Sănătatea Trup și Suflet despre această metodă de întoarcere către sine, de eliberare emoțională, de vindecare și până la urmă de a ajunge la acea pace cu noi înșine și de deblocare a tuturor lucrurilor care ne stau parcă în calea împlinirii noastre. În această seară, alături de noi, Brandon Bass. De aici încolo discuția se va purta în limba engleză. Hello and welcome, Brandon.
Thank you. It's amazing how much I understood of that. I was listening to you and you're liberating the emotions and clearing the blocks, and I was hearing that and I was going, oh, that's amazing.
That's your DNA speaking.
Yeah, it is.
Okay, I thought to start about the journey, but I want, please, you to tell us why you are, why I said about you that you are a quarter Romanian.
Well, I didn't hear that part. But actually my grandfather and grandmother were Romanian, and he was a major in the Romanian army and an attaché to the King Carol. And he fell in love with my Austrian grandmother, who she was an opera singer, and she came to sing at the court of King Carol, and he saw her there and was completely besotted, and my mother was the result of that.
Wow.
And so
beautiful. Yeah.
Yeah, and so yeah, my mother, she grew up in Boldești, just outside in a big vineyard.
Ramona is from Ploiești.
Ah, right, yes.
We are neighbors somehow.
Yeah,
in
so
County.
yeah, even though he worked in Bucharest all the time during the week, he would always go back to Boldești.
Yes,
on the weekend to be with my grandmother and my mum.
Now that we know that we are between sisters here.
Yes, absolutely.
Please tell me again, you mentioned, and then I discovered step by step, that the journey actually is a natural method that our body has. How is that, and how come we don't know anymore how to use it naturally?
You know, it was born, as you know, from my direct experience of healing naturally from a basketball-sized tumor without drugs of surgery. And one of the things that happened is I found a means for all of us, a method for all of us to go on our internal journeys inside our bodies and uncover what are called old repressed cell memories. And what we know about the emotions, and you're asking why have we lost touch with this natural way of healing. And what we know about the emotions is that when we feel, and what science knows, is strong emotion, and we repress it, it releases a biochemistry into the body which will go to certain cell receptors and block them, rendering those cells incapable of communicating with the rest of the cells in the body. And if over time illness happens, it happens where the cells are blocked. And conversely, what medical science has found is that when we feel our emotions, naturally like a child does, you know, our cell receptors remain open, and they can watch that in a laboratory. But what happened to all of us is we lost touch with our emotions. And it was the kind of thing that we may have been 3 years old, at Suria's age, you know, or she's 2 years old, crying about something. And mother said, no, dry your tears, we've got to get to kindergarten. Yes. And the first shutdown happened. We got it, not just intellectually, but we got it physically, that certain emotions are allowed and other emotions are not allowed. And so as we began to shut down our emotions, you shut one emotion down, you end up shutting them all down. And in that process, we lost touch with not only who we are, but how we feel. It was interesting today at a press conference, one woman said, I don't even know how to feel.
Yeah.
And it's not just here in Romania. It's every country I go to, of the 48 countries that we travel to and offer the journey to. It doesn't matter if it's Eastern countries, Western countries, whether I'm in India, whether I'm in Africa, whether I'm in Australia, whether I'm all over Europe. All of us as a humanity have unfortunately lost touch with how we really feel inside. And the journey, it just gives you a very practical method to get in touch with yourself again and to uncover how you really feel and to clear, as you said earlier, whatever blocks you so that the natural, authentic self can live your life.
But the most common comment I get is that I don't want to feel anything because I suffered too much.
I'm afraid
Yeah.
of suffering.
It's just, I don't want to feel anything, even if I cannot remember how love feels like or freedom is, but at least I don't feel sufferance.
Yeah, it is true. I mean, there's an epidemic of depression in our world. And what happens, what they know that happens, is when you think a negative thought and it gets released, that biochemistry goes to the cell receptors and blocks them. And all of us produce natural serotonin, which is a natural opiate drug that makes you feel joy, you feel bliss with serotonin. But when the serotonin, it's produced by your brain, gets released, and the cells are blocked and they can't uptake the serotonin. And so then you feel more depressed. So you think more negative thoughts, more biochemistry gets released, and pretty soon we're living in a world where we can't even feel the happy emotions anymore, as you said.
Yeah.
We can't feel the joy, we can't feel the love, we can't feel freedom. All we feel is just shut down and blocked. And what the journey is designed to do, and of everything that it works with, we get the greatest results with depression, is that it gives you a method to go inside and get to the root cause of what put that surface depression, that numbness, that blanket of shutdown in place. So you get underneath the blanket of numbness that you have in your life, and you get to the emotional root cause. And when you finally release that stored consciousness and all the pain and and come to a place of understanding and ultimately forgiveness of what's happened to you in your life, forgiveness of God, of life, of yourself, of other people, then what happens is when new cells are born, they are born free from that old consciousness. And so it allows you to be more free emotionally. Not only that, but as you start to befriend your emotions, you realize that they are the gateway to your inner self, to the soul. And in the past, it's like you feel an emotion, it's like, smoke it away, or drink it away, or get on Facebook, get on Google, call a friend, go to the movies, watch television until you can't even see anymore. Anything to avoid feeling an emotion. And so the journey gives you a gentle but very effective way to not only feel your emotions, but get to the root of what put them in place. So that when you finally clear it at the deepest level, you don't find the anger coming up all the time. You don't find
Which
the
is
devastation.
chasing you. Yeah, the feeling was the anger or the sadness or whatever it is was chasing after me all the time. And I was blocking because I know how to put masks. But I felt that they are there. And
there was this one woman, I often work with government ministries, and I was working with the Ministry of Education in Israel, and the entire Ministry of Education, all the ministers went through a year-long training in the journey. And at the end of that time, the head minister of education, so we're talking the head of high schools, the head of guidance counselors, the head of grammar schools, head of psychology. Well, the head minister, who was in charge of all of the education system, she said, you know, I'm going to gather everyone together who went through the program, and you don't speak, Brandon. Just, I want to hear from everyone what their experience was. And yes, as the journey is famous for clearing physical things, one woman had cleared from breast cancer, and one woman had cleared depression. But this one other woman, she said, Brandon, you know, I didn't have anything physical. She said, I just had so much anger. And she said, I've been walking these ministry halls for 17 years. I wouldn't say shalom, which is their way of greeting one another. And when I'd get to a committee meeting, which we have weekly, all I would do was argue with everyone. We'd make another appointment to have another committee meeting so we could argue some more. And she said, I have 8 children because we are in the, you know, we're replacing those children lost during the Holocaust. And she said, I'd get home at night and I'd make dinner for my 8 children and for my husband. And of course, everyone would be late, and I'd find myself shouting at my children because the food had gotten cold. And she said, I just got to a place where I was so stressed out that I began to hate myself. And she said, the first time I did my journey process, Brandon, she said, I got to the origin of what had started all my anger. And the root cause of the anger and what had caused the self-hatred. She said that day I finished, and I got home, and of course my kids were late for dinner, and it had gone cold again, and I thought, this is nuts. Who cares if the food is cold? I have 8 beautiful children. I have 8 beautiful children. I'm so blessed. I have healthy children.
Yes.
You know, who cares? And she said at the end of dinner, her little 8-year-old daughter said to her, Mommy, where did all the anger go? You know, and even the children could feel it. And so all of us, I don't care what country, what religion, you know, what background. You could be working for the government. I mean, in Holland, the entire government ministry, if you have work-related stress, the only clinic they will send you to is to a journey clinic, because it's known to get to the root and have lasting results. I mean, you could pay to go to any clinic, but if you have work-related stress, well then the government will only send you to one that has journeys. So the reason I'm sharing this is because people don't have to be on a spiritual path. They just have to have stressed out lives. And I have a absolute knowledge that all of us are experiencing. These are hard times. These are not easy times, and there's a lot of pressure, and specifically on women during this time, because not only are we mothers and wives, but now, when the Berlin Wall came down, there was all this pressure for us to have careers.
Yes.
And we still come home at the end of a day.
There are still things to do.
And not only that, but it's expected now that we still be a full-time mother and a full-time wife. And I was in Slovakia, and I was with a group of 600 women. And they were saying some of them were ready to take their own lives. 28 years old, 30 years old, because they had pressure from their husband to have a full-time career, but they were supposed to come home and cook the meals and take care of the kids. And then in Slovakia, it's very upsetting because it's a traditional country, and the mothers who normally take care of the children during the day, so the grandmothers, because their daughter was now a career woman, which they felt was wrong for women, they disinherited their daughters and refused to help their daughters. So not only that, but then now the moms, are having to pay for childcare, feeling guilty that their mothers, the grandmothers, aren't there to look after the children, and it's just a no-win situation. You know. And it's something I think that here in Romania, everybody's working, everybody's highly
touching
educated.
the wounds.
Yeah, yeah.
I must recognize it's very hard to stay here near Brenda. She has hypnotic eyes. I saw blue eyes before, but it's unbelievable. It's just
Well, I don't want to hypnotize someone looking into the camera.
I am so happy to have you here with us because you are a master, because of what you've done for this planet. You bring knowledge, awareness, and this is great, starting from a challenge, a great challenge in your life.
Yeah.
But you also are a very beautiful woman.
Oh,
a
thank
very
you.
beautiful lady. And I would like the people to meet also the lady behind the master and also the wise lady behind the master. Because I think every day we can learn something.
Yes.
And we have you here. And if we have you here, we want to
let's
take
have some fun then.
advantage.
You know, I'm 64 years old, and at my age, any compliment you can get.
Great, huh?
So, yeah.
I would ask you something because you have this beautiful age. You had lessons in your life.
Yes. Yeah.
Can you share with us a few of them, one of them that could help us also? Like advice, like, look, this is what I've learned in my life, and this could help you. Would you like to share something?
Sure, any of it. I mean, the tumor was the least of what happened to me, and it was a year after the tumor, and my house burned down, and we didn't have house insurance. So financially, we lost everything. And then a year after that, my husband of 21 years fell in love with a younger woman and left me and married a younger woman. And so it was a series of big things, a series of big events. And it was a crazy thing. But it was a year after my husband had left me and the divorce had come through. And I had arranged with him, I didn't want to be paid, you know, half of everything. All I wanted was a very small stipend on a monthly basis, and just for 2 years, till I could get up on my own two feet, because I had been serving him in his career, and I had been serving Tony Robbins in his career, and I needed to, you know, really create my own career. And the honest thing happened, and perhaps you can relate to this. I was vacuuming the carpet in front of my little couch, and out of nowhere, after all I'd been through, I wasn't experiencing fear. But out of nowhere, whew, this fear came rising up. And I didn't know this, but I had fear of feeling fear.
Okay.
And so I went on the run. And I started cleaning the house and calling friends up and getting more clients and going to movies. And I kept myself busy because I was on the run. And then a week later, another, no story, just unbridled fear coming up. And again, I got even busier and busier. And finally, a week later, when it came through, I said, stop, Brandon. You can't run from this fear.
Yes.
You know, fear is like a tiger. It will hunt you down. The only option with fear is to open into the tiger's mouth and offer yourself.
To look it in the face directly.
Look it in the face, yeah. And so I did something, and it turned out to be a very powerful thing for me. I sat down on the couch and I said, Brandon, what are you so afraid of? I mean, you've had a tumor that could have killed you. You had a house burned down. You had the great love of your life, who you thought was the love of your life, leave you for another woman. And now you've got, out of nowhere, a year later, this fear arising. And I said, what are you so afraid of? And I saw this little check that my husband, he'd sent me from the month before, and knowing that check would not come in. Oh. And just an inner knowing, like an instinct.
Yes.
And I thought, surely after all you've been through, you can't be afraid of not getting a check, a spousal support check. And there must be some deeper fear in here. And so I thought, okay, I'm going to have to get to the bottom of this fear.
Yes.
And I wrote down on a piece of paper, okay, what's the worst that could happen if this check
Scenario. Yeah.
doesn't come in? And I closed my eyes and I thought, what is the worst that could happen? And the worst that could happen is the check doesn't come in. And after a couple of months, I'm going to have my landlord's going to chuck me out of the apartment. And immediately when I saw that picture, I mean, all this fear came up, and also the shame that with all my degrees and all my education and all my background, that at the age of 41 years old, my landlord would chuck me out of the apartment. And I thought, okay, well, let's say that happens. Well, what's the worst that could happen? And immediately I saw myself in a picture going to my mother's house, and I immediately crossed that out and thought, I can't become a parasite to my mother at the age of 41 in it. So I saw myself having to go to a friend's house. And we have this expression in the United States that after about a week or two with a friend, you wear out your welcome. And I was aware that my friend, my dearest friends, would want me out of that house. And the shame and the devastation that I felt. And I said, okay, well, so what if that happened? What's the worst that could happen? And I found
You have tears in your eyes.
Yeah.
Still.
Well, just the thought of that, you know, and so then I said, okay, if that happened, my friends chucked me out of their house. What's the worst that could happen? And I had a picture of myself in my hometown, New York City. And I was a beggar with a cup in my hand, trying to get quarters so I could eat. And I looked at that, my God, with my background and my education, well, if that happened, what's the worst that could happen? What's my real deepest fear here? And my deepest fear that was rock bottom in the core of all those fears
Yes.
was that I did not have what it takes to survive. That inside of me, that I did not have what other people have. That intrinsically there was something wrong with me. That I did not have what it takes to survive. And I said, well, if that were the case, then what would happen? And my eyes are closed when I'm doing this, and I said, well, I would die. And it was almost like something was beginning to disintegrate and die, and I fell into a nothingness. And then into a huge presence of light that was everywhere. And I thought, whoa, even if the body dies, this that I am remains.
Yes.
The infinite soul. And I said, okay, does that give me the courage I need to face down my worst fear and journey style, roll up my sleeves, dive in, and get to the root of this fear that I haven't got what it takes to survive? And in fact, when I did the journey process and cleared it out, it actually opened the doors for the journey to be part of the world stage as it is now. And so, for me, that worst fear became the liberator for me. And so, if you've got fear coming up in your life, instead of going on the run from it, I suggest you face it and ask, well, if that happened, what's the worst that could happen? And get to the bottom of it, and then open into this, even if death, I mean, that's the worst that could happen. But ultimately, who survives? Something lives, even when the body has fallen away. This that is the soul. So that was sort of an everyday experience from not knowing where's this fear coming from,
If because you were talking about fears, I have this question in my mind, because for me fear means future. What will happen in the future?
Yes.
Fear is not about the past.
Yeah.
So what it means for you here and now?
The fear?
here and now. Here and
Here
now.
and
Just to
now
be
is
here
a
and now. What
fearless
it means
time.
for you.
It's fearless. If you are wholly present and just here, all that exists is Roxana and Ramona
Yes.
and this moment. When you give your full awareness and bring all of your attention just to the now, there is no thought of past and there is no thought of future. And here in this moment is fearlessness, is just truth, is just presence. And so yes, part of what we learn in the journey is how to be present to the now, which is why I think that when I had the tumor, when I had my house burned down, when I lost the great love of my life, lost my job, lost everything, I didn't have fear come up. But it was the thought of a check not coming in that was creating this panic.
This is unbelievable because
Yeah.
it comes the next question. It's
Okay.
like, but it's unbelievable. I had it in my mind, but she just comes along. What it means, mind, in our lives? What is the role of the mind, of the thought in our mind? And what is the role of the emotion in our life? How do you see mind, thought, and emotion?
That is a very big
No,
question. It's the
your
question of the
personal-
universe.
It's your person, just a
If you are
personal.
present, thoughts do not come through. If you are here right now.
Yes.
If you are, however, up in your mind, then you have a lot of thoughts. What I always suggest to people, and people can even try it as we're on air right now, just bring all of your awareness right to this moment, to this millisecond. So there's no thought of past and no thought of future. And now close your eyes for a second and let your heart, your being, your awareness become a vast open sky of all acceptance. And into this vast open sky, welcome all the thoughts that have ever lived inside of you. All the thoughts, but stay as this vast open sky. Is this vast open sky of being, your own awareness, touched in any way by the thoughts that come through it? Or is it just like a sky that allows the clouds to come through, but the open sky itself is unaffected? And are you in any way bothered by your thought when you stay as open sky? So taking a nice deep breath in, letting it out. What was your experience? What was your experience?
The thoughts were like children, and some of them like grumpy, some of them were just funny, but they were just playing. The sky was untouched.
Yeah.
Relaxation, relaxation.
Did you
Yes.
find any thoughts came?
I just noticed, I was observer.
Yes.
But it was like,
Very often when people really do this and become this open sky, become present, become aware of the
Yes.
vastness of their own awareness, thoughts don't even bother coming. But if they do come, they can come and go,
yes, they were just,
coming and go,
Passing
and
through.
passing through.
yeah.
But what we do, we think our thoughts have significance. And so when the thoughts come up, we lay a feast for them. And we welcome them to come down. And we say, oh, you must have meaning and significance. And who brought up this thought? And who's to blame for this thought? And how can I change that situation? And we
Yes.
add a lot of energy to
We
it.
feed.
Yes.
We feed and we tell a story. And then we look outside ourselves for who's to blame for it.
Of course.
Yes.
Our mirrors.
But there's another choice available. That you can just stay here as open sky, and when the thought arises, let it come, let it go, and just don't touch it. So you are at choice. As a matter of fact, medical science says there's a tiny little synapse, a pause, before thought arises, where you are given the chance to decide, will I follow it,
what to do
engage with it, give it energy, or will I just let it come and go? And so this little mini process we did is kind of teaching your body that you can actually stay wholly present, let the thoughts come and go, and let them be none of your business. Let them be none of your business. So most thoughts are generated from our ego, you know.
Yes.
Only we think we're listening to the voice of God, you know. And so I think it's best just to let the thoughts come and go.
Let them go.
And you know what they do is they wind down over time. Then instead of becoming a servant of your mind,
Yes.
the mind becomes a servant to you. So you are able to use thought that is needed, because we have beautiful minds, but it's not running your show. You're using discernment, clear thinking as part of the present moment. Okay. Now emotions.
Yes.
They're a very different thing. The emotions are
Colors.
Yes,
Colors.
a lot of colors, yes. And the emotions are stored inside the body. And I actually feel our emotions are the gateway to our soul. And that when you really welcome an emotion and open and go into the core of it, it will take you to a deeper layer of emotions, an even deeper layer. And eventually, like what happened to me with the fear, you will get to the base, the root of it. And if you let go in that, you will open into this enlightened awareness, this love, this truth that is your own essence. And so all of us came into this world, and even medical science will tell you that when an infant is born, they experience themselves as being a vast field of love, of oneness.
Bliss.
Yeah, they are, all of the world is part of them, and they are part of the world. It's the one. And as a matter of fact, when mother's hand comes before an infant's eyes, they feel mother's hand as being part of themselves. But unfortunately, this vast, radiant love, it gets covered over with a lot of those lies and limitations and shutdowns that I spoke about earlier. And so then we start identifying with the pain, with the limiting beliefs, the shutdowns. And when we learn to be adults, as you said earlier, we cover this whole mess over of all the layers with a bright, shiny, polished mask that we present to the world. And it says, oh, I'm an adult, I've got it handled, I'm responsible.
Yes. I cannot show to the world that I'm
Falling
shivering,
apart.
or something like that. You were mentioning kids.
Yeah.
And I was wondering, the kids are our teachers, or we are theirs, or they are mirrors? What's also your experience with your daughter Kelly?
Well, I feel that in an ideal world, that we are gardeners of souls as parents.
How beautiful.
And that our children are not here to enhance our lives, to make our marriage more complete.
To
Our
unite
children are not here to bring us love and bliss. That it's the other way around. And that when you're having a child, you're here to nurture that soul, to grow into its full potential. And that's a job you're doing your whole life. I can promise you, my daughter is now 42 years old, and I am still in the business of looking after and taking care of her and the grandchildren. And so I feel there's a mistaken belief, you know, people get married and they gotta have children. They forget that it's going to be the sleepless nights,
Yeah,
It's going to be the
package.
poopy diapers. It's going to be the screaming. It's going to be the kid who's turning into a teenager who sits at breakfast and says, I hate you, I hate you, I hate you.
You're touching my wound now.
Well, you did send me that note. I was just bringing it up in conversation.
Exactly.
That's the way children are. And so, listen, Kelly didn't talk to me for 3 years after her husband died. So, you know,
Why?
Too long for this
Okay.
time. Yeah. So yes, you know, the children are going to go through what developmental growing pains they need to go through. And our job is to support them, nourish them, and grow them through that. Even if it means they're shouting at you at breakfast, even if it means that her heart closed down after her husband, Kelly's heart just closed down. And anybody she deeply loved, she couldn't write to, speak to. So she didn't write to her father, she didn't write to me. She just wrote me a note, I'm in mourning, I need my space. And she didn't contact me again for 3 years. And she needed her space. And
what do you do in these moments when the teenagers and children say, I need my space?
In that particular case, I gave it to her and said, okay, this is what she needs. And I didn't find out that she hadn't, anybody that she was close to, she pushed out of her life because she was afraid of opening her heart again. And she was newly married and he died of prostate cancer. And she just closed down. She closed her heart. She even pushed away all her friends, the ones that were closest to her, that had been friends all her
What do you do
life.
with your pain of the parent?
Well, as a parent, then that's my work. And that was my work. And it was it was excruciatingly painful. I couldn't, at first I looked to myself, what have I done wrong?
Yeah.
Why my own daughter won't speak to me, you know, and I you know, looked inside, how have I hurt her that she would push me away? And so I had to do a lot of work on myself and come to forgive myself for anything I may have done to hurt her, and then come to a place of neutrality to give her the space she needs to go on her life's journey.
And this is an important lesson in life, to give space, to respect space.
Yeah, and it was a
someone.
painful one. And when she contacted me, she said, I know you may never want to speak to me again, because I'm sure this was probably excruciatingly painful for you. And I wrote back to her, first received the email, and I said, you know, Cal, it was extremely painful for the first year and a half. And I came to a place finally of neutrality in myself. And I said, but it's like the words that Shakespeare said. Shakespeare said that the love is, how did he put it? Now it's just left me, his quote. The essence of the quote was that love doesn't change, that love always remained. That's how it says. The words are, the exact quote from Shakespeare is, love does not alter when it alteration finds, nor does it bend with the remover to remove, like she had done. No, it is an ever-fixed mark. And I said to her, ever-fixed means it's eternal, it's always steadfast. And I said to Kelly, I said, you know, this love, it doesn't alter when alteration happens, and it doesn't change with the remover to remove. It remains here. And so, however long you need space, or don't need space, this love doesn't change.
It's here, yeah.
It's a neutral kind of, I'm reluctant to use the word unconditional because it's been overused. But I would call it a neutral love that allows the being to dance their dance, to live their life, to go on their own path. And I realized no matter how hurt I was, the love didn't change. And I'm sure every parent that's watching this knows that that's true, that no matter what your child did, that the love doesn't change. How can it?
We are speaking about love. How is your love life?
How is my... Well,
but that 2 minutes, Kevin was there. The last 2 minutes about Kevin.
Okay. Well, I have a great love life.
This is great.
One of the things that happened is that after my former husband left me for another woman, and I started on the road with the journey.
And this is good for women who think that this is the tragedy and the end. Yes.
Well, I'd married at the age of 22, and so I'd only ever been with the one man, and here I am, 42 years old, and I'm thinking, oh my God, I'm getting old and fat, and will there ever be another relationship in my life? And I was doing all the journey seminars, and it had this big article written in the Sunday Times.
There's Kevin.
There's Kevin.
And our last minute of the show.
And so anyway, all these people were coming to my seminars, and Kevin came as a result of this article where 2,000 people called. And he had depression. He had a serious suicidal depression. He had depression since he was 16. He was on a cocktail of drugs, so Prozac, diazepam, dimazepam. So he was on uppers and downers. He was a businessman. And he completely cleared depression with his first process at the age of 38 years old, right? And so he fell in love with the journey. He started wanting to help all of Britain become the journey, and he ended up becoming my business partner. And he just wanted Britain to become clear from depression. And so, very softly on cat's paws, a romance crept in, and
that's beautiful.
We've been now together for nearly 22 years now. And we got married about 4 years into our relationship on Maui. But what's so fresh about it is, the unfortunate thing is that we don't get to spend much time together. So
how is your normal life? I mean,
my normal life is 65% of the time I'm apart from Kevin.
You are working.
And he's working.
Okay.
But he's in this field too, and has developed his own work, not only in depression, but in the field of leadership. Yes. And so he's worked with like the Ministry of Justice Department in Canada, and he's worked with our governmental ministries, and so he's working with business people with the journey, and I was working with professionals in the field, so with medical doctors, psychiatrists, psychologists, school teachers, but our work has taken us, around the world.
And how is that day of yours when you don't work?
When we get together,
I have
it's
to
so
interrupt
yummy.
you too.
It's so yummy. I mean, it's so yummy. We don't even have to say anything.
This is called happiness. This is an emotion. An emotion.
It is an emotion. Yes.
Do you know
happiness.
Happiness. Yes. It's. We're so deeply in love.
Happiness is yummy.
Yeah. It's yummy.
It's a delicious happiness.
Delicious happiness. And what's beautiful is because we're both so committed. I get a journey process once a week when I'm on tour. So, tomorrow morning I'll be getting my journey process. I wouldn't dream of getting on stage without it. And so does he. So we're always clearing anything that obscures us. And so whenever I meet Kevin after I haven't seen him for 3 weeks, 5 weeks, 4 weeks, it's like, who is it that's showing up now? Because more and more of Kevin is here, more and more of Brandon is here, and we can meet in a deeper love.
And that's the most beautiful thing to use also in a relationship. I experienced that, and it's so beautiful, yes, to freshly meet one another each day and to choose one another each day. I hate to interrupt this. Please promise us that you will come back to our
Oh, I
show
would
next
love
time you will
that.
be in Romania.
Until then, I'll keep the yummy.
Okay.
I'll dream on it.
Asta vă doresc și dumneavoastră, să păstrați acel yummy taste, acel gust al fericirii, să-l aveți tot timpul prezent, aici și acum, și să vă aduceți aminte că e întotdeauna pe undeva. Trebuie doar să aveți acces. Acesta a fost ediția specială de astăzi a emisiunii Design Perfect. Ne întâlnim săptămâna viitoare. Nu știu cine va putea să mai ia zâmbetul de pe față acum. Rămâneți pe canal 33. O seară minunată!